Hello and welcome to this episode of Ideal Wealth Grower YouTube videos. My name is Axel Meyer-Höfer and I'm going to be the host for this episode. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the strategy that we have, our out-of-state turnkey residential real estate investing strategy, and answering one or two of the questions that I get quite a bit when people consider this approach. One of the questions is, how long does it take? And the other question is, how much money do I actually need to get started? So one thing I can tell you right away is the idea of the strategy of using out-of-state turnkey providers to basically help you build a portfolio of properties that generate passive income for you is not a very quick thing. And I believe that a lot of people really struggle with this because we live in what I call the age of instant gratification. Every piece of news is available right away for everybody, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or the news media. You get every piece, anything, anywhere in the world happens. And if you're following the right people or are logged into or subscribe to the right information, you're going to get informed about this, or you get an alert, an alarm, and so forth. When it comes to investing and you look into the media, the stories that are actually being advertised or reported, or what they call reporting about, are typically stories where something extraordinary happened, and extraordinary is oftentimes an amazing amount of gain in a very short period of time. If you're at all interested in investing, I assume you have probably seen that even though we have and still live to some extent through this pandemic time, the stock market has increased. And I don't want to actually go into why that is, but even though we have all this economic turmoil, anybody who has been investing in the stock market in 2020 made good returns, depending on exactly what you invested in. But what people are actually really focused on are the very few stocks that basically did amazing. One of the examples would be Tesla. That the stock for Tesla in 2020 increased almost or something around 700%. Now that's pretty crazy, and that is in a way newsworthy, but it gives the impression that you can take $1,000 or $10,000 and make 700% profit in a year. The issue that nobody talks about is that you would have had to know that that will happen so that you put your money in exactly the right stock and not the wrong stock. Because if you say, okay, I know transportation is a good field, and you think about, okay, what is transportation? I could do railroads, I could do cars, or I could do airplanes. Let's just take those three choices. And with those three choices, you could have in cars said, well, I go with GM, or I go with Chrysler, I go with Toyota or Honda or any of those names, or you could have said Tesla. With other options, you could have said, okay, I go with Boeing, or I go with like an airline like United or Delta or anything like that. And with railroads, you could say something like Santa Fe Rail or something like that. Burlington. As you can see, there's a ton of choices, and the only one that actually got those 700% was Tesla. Nobody else. So you would have had to be really almost a prophet to be able to say, I know that that's the one that I need to be in, and very few people can be in it. So this intention and this news that we keep hearing about the few very rare cases where the person had the right inkling, the right idea, invested in it and got a home run, is about as rare as a home run in a baseball game. Now, how does that compare to our out-of-state turnkey residential real estate investing strategy? And it really doesn't, but it does in some way. For one, both investing in stocks or investing in real estate is a form of investing. Now, within real estate, it's again similar to what I said with stocks. When you choose an industry and you say, okay, I go into transportation. In real estate, you have the same thing. You can say, I go into residential real estate, or you go into apartment complexes, which is commercial real estate, or you go into other forms of real estate like storage units or mobile home parks or like malls and business complexes and stuff. And each one of these has its own rules and its own approach and its own benefits and detriments. So again, we're choosing down to which form are we actually going with. And the more you want to look for safety with your money, less risks in that sense, the longer the time becomes that you can actually expect certain profits. Now, on the other hand, one of the biggest differences in real estate investing versus stock investing is that in real estate, you have a partner on your side. And that's the bank, or those are the lenders. And what do I mean by that is, if you say, I want to buy Tesla stock or United Airlines stock or Boeing stock or anything like that, anybody, whether you buy it through the bank or an online broker, however you buy it, is okay. It says the stock price is right now $200 per share. You want to buy 10 shares, you pay $2,000. That is very different in residential real estate investing, because there, as an investor, you only have to come up with 20% of the money and 80% comes from the bank or from a lender. So that means instead of only being able to buy $2,000 worth for $2,000 of money in your bank, you can buy $10,000 worth for $2,000 in your bank. So you have what's called leverage. On the other hand, because you get this money from the bank, it's typically, and the most leveraged and best performing way right now is to get that for 30 years. And therefore, you can already see the time horizon is way longer. Now, does that mean that the investment is only a good investment in 30 years from now? No, it doesn't. And I give you an example in a minute why it doesn't. But fundamentally, you have to be willing to look at a longer time horizon. Now, if we go and say, how can that actually look in reality? And how much money do you need? Since that was the other question that people were asking a lot. So how much money do you need? Depends very much on the price of the properties that you buy. I like to use the example, and I actually own properties in exactly that price segment around $100,000. Nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 12, 13, 1,400 square feet with a garage and a nice garden around it. Fully renovated. Around $100,000, maybe 120, maybe 130, sometimes 90. So if we go back to the $100,000 example and say, okay, I need to bring 20% to the table and the bank or the lender brings 80% to the table, the answer to the question in that example is what you need is $20,000 plus a little bit. I always say add about another $3,000 or so for appraisal cost and closing cost and those kind of things. Right, so about $23,000, $20,000 of which is literally going directly into the purchase of the property, and $80,000 comes from the bank. So that's quite different. Now, the other thing that is important in that context is you start making money from day one from that investment. And the cool thing in this whole residential real estate investing part is that even though the bank gives you 80% and you only put in 20%, you are allowed, the banks don't want any of the benefit that you get out of the investment. So if your property increases, let's say by 10% from $100,000 to $110,000, you keep those $10,000. The bank doesn't want any of that. If you get great rent because there's so much demand for your property and you make $300 or $400 at the end of the month after you paid everything, the bank doesn't want any of it. As long as you pay the cost for the mortgage, which is interest and principal, they're happy. So now think about that. And I literally had that example for 2020. I had properties that I bought for right around $100,000 in an area that appreciated about 9 to 10% in 2020. So I put $20,000 in and my property improved or increased in value by $9,000. That's almost a 10% return of investment just on my down payment. Plus, don't forget, my tenants paid rent every month. And a part of that rent went directly in my pocket, about $4,000. So on my $20,000, I made overall about $13,000 in return in 1 year. I can't do the math really quick, but that's probably 70-80% of my down payment. So a lot of people forget that when they compare how much can I make with a residential real estate investing versus, for example, the stock market or other investments. Now, not every year will all your properties increase by 9% or 10%. Sometimes it might only be 3 or 4%, but it's that equity gain plus the income from the rent plus the tax deduction. So it is pretty common to expect that you make about 15 to 25% on your own money that you put in. And that makes it a really good investment. And you do that every year because it's much safer than a home run in the stock market. But, and this goes back to how long does all this take? If you want to build a portfolio that ultimately gets you enough passive income so that you can cover your expenses, and I call this the time freedom point. That's the point in time in the future where if you look at how much does it cost you to pay for everything that you need to live, and your passive income out of your properties is actually paying for that. So let's just do a quick example and say you have said to cover everything for where I live and my car and my food and everything like that is $4,000 a month. And you get $400 after everything is paid out of your property. So you paid for vacancy, for capex, for reserves, for the mortgage, for the property taxes, for the insurance. All of that is paid and you made $400 a month out of that. Then to reach your $4,000 goal, you need 10 properties. And so if you were to say, okay, I cannot imagine to buy more than one per year, then it would take you 10 years to get to the 10 properties that pay you $400 each, and you would make your $4,000, and you reach your time freedom point where you no longer have to work. You really have the freedom to do with your time what you're interested in. That doesn't mean you couldn't work. If you really love what you do, then just keep doing it. But if you say, I'm basically exchanging time for money just because that's a way to cover my costs, as soon as you reach that point, the time freedom point, then you don't have to do that anymore. So it could be 10 years. If you invest faster, or if, for example, your rent in your properties increases and you have more left over than those $400 a month, then the time gets shorter. And it's an individual thing. Same thing is if you say, okay, my properties still pay me the $400 a month, but I only need $3,000 a month to cover everything. Well, then you don't need 10 properties. Then you're probably okay with 8 or maybe 7, depending, right? And you get there in 7 or 8 years instead of 10 years. But that's the way to look at it, is how much do I get realistically out of my property every month, and how many do I need to reach my time freedom point? So that explains how long it takes. And the other question is, how much do I need to start? You don't have to start with a $100,000 property. You could even start with an $80,000 property that is still good quality in a good neighborhood and so forth and so forth. And that would mean you need about 18, 20 to maybe 25,000 to start. And that, if you say, I have nothing right now, I only have a good income, my spouse or girlfriend or wife has some income as well, well, then you just have to decide how much can you put aside. Let's say you can put $2,000 aside per month, which I know is a lot of money. Then you would get there somewhere in 10 months. If you say, well, hey, that's way too much, I can maybe put 1,000 aside. Well, then it takes you 20 months or maybe 18 months, right? But you can see from zero to get started with your first property. And then depending on how much money you want to have at your time freedom point, you can calculate almost exactly to the year when you will be at that point. And that's also the reason why I say both these questions, how long does it take and how much money do I need, are very important in the context of how and how soon can you start. And the answer is really the sooner the better. The younger you are to start, the sooner you will get there. And I have seen examples where people at 35, 40, 45 got to their time freedom point and don't need to work anymore. That doesn't mean they don't do any work anymore or don't work for money anymore, or anything like that, but they have the freedom to decide. So I would say, if you ask me straight out, how much do you need? Anywhere between 18 and 22 to 25,000 to get your first property. How long does it take? Anywhere between 8 to 12 years. So I hope that answers these questions and gives you a little bit of a frame around it. Why are the answers like that? And you can compare with other investments, and always keep in mind there might be other things that go way faster to get to that time freedom point, but they're also most likely more risky. So if it's only a 50-50 chance that you get there, then you might have to answer the question, do I want to take that risk or not take that risk? So I hope this was informative to you. We will keep going with this kind of series of answering questions and talking about how does the strategy that we actually suggest fit into your potential for investing, and how you can actually get into the flow of understanding how these things work and why our strategy has its place, even though it's not the only one, and there are many other ways on how you can use your money. So if you like this video, I would like to ask you to give it a thumbs up. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe and hit the little notification bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. And most importantly, what I would really like to ask you to do is share the video with your network, because there's probably plenty of people out there who have the same question. They say, I have heard about real estate, and real estate is one of the very few things that kept increasing in value in 2020. How can I be part of that? How much can I get out of it? How much do I need to bring to the table, and how long does it take? Hopefully this video helps to answer some of those questions. So if you share it, you do a great service to your network and to your friends. So with that, I hope you're doing well, you like the video, stay safe, and I talk to you next time.